takes sacrifice for us to be able to prioritize our own needs, take time out of our day to really nourish our bodies, our minds, and our souls. Peace and love, y'all. Welcome to Mav Magic. I'm Mav. I use they, them pronouns. Welcome to my channel. This is a place where I'm trying to help my trans brothers, sisters, and siblings become their higher selves. So if that's something that you're interested in, please subscribe to my channel and you'll be seeing a lot more videos like this one. Today we're going to be talking about self-care and prioritizing self-care in the midst of transition. When all these different things are happening to our bodies, it is so important for us to be prioritizing our own needs, our wants, our desires, our spirit, making sure that we're doing everything that we need to really become our higher selves. If we're not prioritizing our needs, then we can't really elevate. So I'm gonna spend a little bit of time talking about self-care, like what it looks like. And actually, at the end of the video, I'm going to be giving a little bit of a synopsis about my top surgery consultation that I had this week. So please stick around to the very end if you want to hear that bonus content. Diving right in, we're going to be talking about first what self-care isn't. Self-care first is not selfish. We're often taught to believe that caring for ourselves, prioritizing our needs is somehow selfish or not considerate of other people's needs. That is wrong. It is so important for us to look to ourselves, make sure that we are filling our cups up so that we have enough love and abundance that we're giving other people the things that we have an abundance of. So we're not kind of trying to pour out from an empty cup, trying to help and support other people and impact this world in a better way. And we definitely can't be doing that if we're not taking care of ourselves. Self-care also isn't this like commercial idea that we oftentimes see, that it makes it just like all about pampering or like buying certain products in order to make ourselves look good and things like that. That is definitely not what the core of self-care is. Some of those aspects can be applied to developing a really great self-care practice, but the way that we see it promoted on like television and commercials is really not what self-care is supposed to be like. And the last thing that I want to mention about self-care, what it's not easy. Self-care takes a lot of hard work and dedication. It takes sacrifice for us to be able to prioritize our own needs, take time out of our day to really nourish our bodies, our minds, and our souls. If having a self-care practice is something that you want to do or something that you feel like you need to be working on, I promise you that it is something that you're going to have to dedicate time to. It won't be easy, but it's definitely possible. So what is self-care? What does it look like? I want to talk not exactly about what I feel like the definition of self-care is, but I really want us to think about some of the different aspects that go into developing a good self-care practice. I have 6 main points that I want to get across. The first one is checking in with yourself. It is so important for us to be aware of how our emotions flow throughout the day. I've heard that emotions are just energy in motion. We need to be aware of how energy is moving through our bodies, how we're carrying ourselves, how we're carrying that energy throughout the day, how other people's energy are impacting us. And one of the best ways to do that is just to ask ourselves that question. How am I feeling right now? Even if you're just sitting around watching TV and you might not have a whole lot to do, just ask yourself what's going on for you emotionally. Is there anything that you might be carrying from a conversation that you had yesterday or an incident that occurred last week? Pay attention to your emotions and first just take time to track them and pay attention to what's going on. The next self-care tip that I want to give is to take some extra time to breathe. I have had actually a really complicated relationship with breath because I actually have had struggles with asthma. I got really sick last March of 2020, and it really impacted my breathing and my ability to take full breaths. And it was something that I really struggled with for a long time, and it made it challenging for me to do pretty much anything. I had to be on like lots of inhalers and nebulizers and things like that to get my lungs functioning properly. And I even had a lot of struggles with anxiety that increased the difficulty of breathing. Not to mention that binding for several hours a day makes it really difficult to maintain steady breathing and to take full breaths. All that to say that breathing has definitely been a challenge for me. I had to intentionally make breathing a practice, something that I was really conscious of. I was thinking the other day that we really have to be using the breath as medicine. Some things that this can look like are taking a couple moments out of your day to take maybe 4 really deep breaths. One thing that's important to practice when you're taking deep breaths is trying to make your exhale longer than your inhale. One way to think about this, you can breathe in for 4 counts and then breathe out for 8 counts. It might take a little bit of time for you to develop the lung capacity to be able to do this, but once you get the hang of it, it becomes something that's so easy, and you'll definitely start to notice when you're not taking the time to really breathe and fill your body with all that oxygen and just to feel that prana, that life force coming through our bodies. So take advantage of your breath and use that in your self-care practice. The next one is to nourish your body. Making sure that you are consuming food, enough food for your body throughout your day. A lot of times when anxiety happens, or if you're someone who can be a little bit distracted or might have ADHD like I do, and I've been on medication that has like really suppressed my appetite, I've had to be really mindful of making sure that I'm remembering to eat. I'm not really trying to push forth like any type of specific eating pattern here. I'm just like letting you know that it's important for you to be taking care of yourselves and eating some food. Oftentimes that's something that we can push to the wayside and not really consider like why we're feeling crappy in a certain moment. Sometimes it's just because we need to eat some food. I think about those like Snickers commercials where they're like, you know, you're not yourself when you're hungry. But that's like so true, because we can really be so far outside of ourselves when we're not nourished. So nourish your body, go get something to eat right now. On top of nourishing your body in that way, go ahead and get some water and take a couple swigs of water. I'll drink some right now. Making sure that we're staying hydrated is also super important, especially if you're taking any medications. So that's a bonus one. My 4th tip is to connect with your body. So often we can be so distracted and inundated with so much stimuli and like our phones, watching TV, even hanging out with friends, and we're just kind of engaging with the world and we forget to just engage with ourselves. What this can look like is taking a moment to meditate and focus on what your body feels like to just exist. Try to sit and just notice what your fingers feel like, notice what your toes feel like. Become aware of the different parts of your body during those practices of meditation, or maybe even if you are just, even right now watching this video, wiggle your toes, wiggle your fingers. Remember that you're living in this body right now. We are spiritual beings living in this physical experience. And one of the ways I think that we can make the most of this physical experience is by being aware of our bodies and really living in our bodies. Another thing that I want to note is that living in this body can be hard and it can feel really distressing. I know that I've been thinking a lot about my chest, and like dysphoria has been pretty bad, especially just thinking about top surgery and consultations and stuff like that. So I want to disconnect from my body, but it's so important to really sink into the body that we have, even the parts that we feel distressed about. I really encourage you, take some extra seconds to be present with yourself. This is the only body we have. Take care of it. My 5th tip is to engage with the divine. This can look like a lot of different things. I'm thinking about engaging with the divine within, and then also the divine that is throughout nature, that we see manifested in our beautiful universe. that can look so many different ways for so many different people. So many people have different experiences with the divine, and sometimes we can be kind of afraid to engage with it, or we can have bad experiences with people who have made the divine something that it isn't. I know that I've had that experience, but once I really started to understand the divinity that I have within myself, and also the divinity that you have within yourself, it's something that I really want to communicate. You'll really just start to want to spend more time engaging with that part of yourself, engaging with your higher self. And the more that we engage with our higher selves, the more that we integrate with our higher selves. And that is exactly what we want to accomplish here. The sixth self-care tip that I have is to create. Use your hands, use your voice, use your eyes, use your ears, whatever senses, your taste, whatever senses that stimulate you, whatever you can create in this world is a beautiful way to nourish ourselves, mentally, spiritually, even physically. When we can create something, we can make a delicious meal, we can paint a picture, we can create music, when we can create maybe something, a podcast, whatever that is, whatever your form of expression is, go ahead and do that. We are co-creators with the divine, as we can see all throughout the beauty, all throughout the universe. We have the ability to create with the divine every single day. So I encourage you to take some time to create today, even if it's something small, 5 minutes, do it. That is like all of the tips that I have for self-care. I hope that that was just a helpful way for you to hear a little bit about some ways that you can really just try to step up your self-care game. Now I want to spend some time talking about my top surgery consult that I had this week. Okay, so I'm just like super excited. I don't want to spend too much time chatting about this because I think this is going to be like kind of a long video, but I just have to chat about it a little bit. So I had an appointment with Dr. Jeremy Sinkin in New Brunswick, New Jersey. And so I had to travel a little bit to get there. So I got up, my wife came with me, which is just really great to have someone who is supportive. And then oftentimes when I'm in like appointments, I can get really flustered and forget things. So it's helpful to have someone else there just to support you. The team that was there was like really great with using my preferred name. The doctor and the surgical resident were really good with asking me for my pronouns. My pronouns really weren't like used because they were like talking to me, but it was good to know that they were asking and that is something that they cared about. Okay, so next I had like the nurse come and took lots of my vitals, asked me about my medical history, and that part really wasn't too bad, pretty normal, just like any other appointment. And then afterwards, the surgical resident came in, and that was when I had to do like some actual measurements. So when I was with the nurse, I forgot to mention this, I had to take your top off and put a gown on. So your chest will be flying everywhere. And the resident came and took just some measuring tape and was very carefully measuring all over my chest. So I really want to make sure, like, just to prepare y'all mentally, if you haven't had a top surgery consult, this is your first time really hearing about it, be prepared to be a little bit uncomfortable. They get very, very up and close and personal with your chest, put their hands on your chest. And another thing that you want to be prepared for is for them to refer to your body parts as breasts. And I know that this might be pretty like dysphoria inducing. It's not something that's really dysphoria inducing for me. But if that is, or that can be really triggering for you, I want you to be prepared that that's how they're going to medically refer to your chest, is as breasts and breast tissue. There's also going to be a lot of talk about nipples. And so just to kind of give you a little bit of a heads up for what's coming. So after the surgical resident took all my measurements, then Dr. Sinkin came in and we were able just to discuss some of my results. He was really familiar with, I think, peri-areolar and just double incision as the two primary techniques, but both of those were just not exactly what I'm interested in because I have a larger chest, and so peri won't really work for me. and double incision won't work for me either, just because I want to try to preserve nipple sensation as much as possible. And there's a lot of like technical stuff that goes into these surgeries. So if this is something that you're brand new to, I really recommend doing some research, because when I went in there having some understanding of what they were talking about, when they consider, you know, the nipple stalk and like the pedicle flap, which is like a lot of the things that they'll be talking about in that consultation, you'll actually have an understanding of what they're talking about and what they really want to do. That way you can have an honest conversation with that surgeon, and they can let you know if they can give you the results that you want. I definitely walked in there with a lot of hope, kind of hoping that I would walk in and say that I wanted my particular surgery, which I want to get like either buttonhole or T-anchor, which are both ones that are a little bit more optimal for larger chests and help you preserve nipple sensation. But one thing that does also come with this is that you will typically have some fullness of the chest left over, which is totally fine for me, because as like a little bit of like a medium bear sized person, I just think that like having a bit of a fullness in my chest would just match my body type a little bit more. And I think it helps with having a little bit more of an androgynous appearance. That was really what I was going for, so it didn't really bother me that I have some fullness left over. But if that's not something that you're looking for, your surgeon will definitely talk with you about that. But just to get back to the point, I was really hopeful that I would kind of go in there and I would ask him for what I wanted. He'd be like, yes, let's go. We'd be able to sign up for the surgery. I would give him my letters and that would be it. But I was pretty disappointed. Just to think about it a little bit, like the distance from your chest wall to like where your nipple is, that will kind of determine whether or not a surgeon might think that they will be able to give you the desired results. And so with the length from my chest wall to the nipple being a little bit longer, he was kind of concerned about not being able to give me the flatness that I desired. Even though I did want some of that fullness, it seemed like he only considered there being quite a bit of fullness left over. So I was a little bit bummed out after that, and after kind of having a little bit of the discussion, I'm considering maybe not going with this surgeon. And I do also have 2 other consultations coming up, and one is with Dr. Jared Liebman and Samina Wahab, I think is her name. And so those 2 other surgeons, I think they might have more experience in these areas. So I'm hoping to get some more luck with those. So that was my experience. It was overall a really, really good experience. The doctor was incredibly friendly, very thorough, made me feel pretty good about the decision that I was making. And even though I feel like he might not be the surgeon for me, it was still really a good experience. So I hope that this gave you a little bit of insight into what that experience can look like. Yeah, but that's it. That's all I have for this video. If you stayed to the end, thank you so much for engaging with me and watching my content. Once again, if you could go ahead, give this video a like and subscribe. Comment your experiences with self-care during transition. And also let me know like how your transition is going, what you're feeling, let me know your thoughts. I'd love to engage with you and connect with you. Thank you so much once again. I really appreciate y'all. Peace and love again. I hope that you enjoy the rest of your day and you feel good. See y'all.